Welcome to So I Married a Film Critic. I'm your co-host, Julia.
This is Barry the Film Critic. Hello, everyone.
And tonight we are talking about 1987's Three Men and a Baby.
Touchstone Pictures presents Tom Selleck, Steve Guttenberg, Ted Danson.
Jack!
Whew, Angela, whew, you look different. What happened?
I'm dressed.
That's it.
Three incredibly eligible men hoping to meet some incredibly perfect women.
So many women in so little time.
Now, at last, they're about to find that one girl who will sweep them off their feet.
That's a baby.
It's a baby.
Of course it's a baby.
It's your baby.
No, it's not my baby. It's Jack's baby. The child doesn't look anything like me. I have more hair.
I want to see the way you three big guys handle this one.
I had to go to 3 different places, buy 4 different kinds of formula, 2 different kinds of diapers, bottles, towels, nipples.
You do realize she did a doodle.
Doodle. Doodle. Yes, doodle. You haven't been able to work or to sleep. And there's been all over this place for days. I build 50-story skyscrapers. I assemble cities of the future. I can certainly put together a diaper.
Will somebody please tell me what the hell is going on around here?
Figure it out for yourself.
Are they always this strange?
Yes.
Since they got involved with another woman.
Touchstone Pictures presents 3 normally intelligent men and 1 little girl.
So, what do you want to do?
They're about to discover the only thing worse than raising her
Oh, no, please, not on the silk sheets.
is losing her.
We should be her family.
And let me tell you, the first time you get to work, Daddy, I don't care who you are. Your heart just melts. Can you drive a little faster, please?
Touchstone Pictures presents a comedy about 3 dedicated bachelors and the one woman in the world they couldn't live without.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, good night, sweetheart. Good night.
3 men and a baby.
I think she did a doodle. Your turn to change her. I'll give you $1,000 if you'll do it.
Huge hit, monster hit, biggest, top-grossing film of 1987. I didn't see this one in the theater, neither did you, but man, I remember everyone talking about this thing, about how the laughter was so loud, people couldn't hear the dialogue. Immediately became this beloved film, and it legitimized the film careers of Ted Danson, but especially Tom Selleck, because Selleck was having a hard time basically having it both ways. On TV, it was one of the biggest because of Magnum PI, but very famously, he was cast as Indiana Jones, and he couldn't do it because he had already been tied down to his Magnum contract. So while he was doing Magnum, he tried to do other films. He did a film called High Road to China, he did a film called Runaway and Lassiter, and they were flops, not really respected, and it looked like, well, you're a TV actor, so stick to what you know, which is, it's a very different world today. This thing comes out, and I mean, it's an enormous success. Suddenly, the film roles for him are really coming a lot more. None of them are really as good as this movie. Same thing for Ted Danson. I like Ted Danson, and Cheers, I think, is a terrific show, just like I've always enjoyed Magnum PI. But his film career, I mean, really, this movie sort of stabilized it. He did a couple movies I liked, like Cousins, but like this was another high point for him. Guttenberg, on the other hand, it's funny. Steve Guttenberg, the other part of the trio of this movie, Guttenberg already was a big deal at this point because of Cocoon, because of the Police Academy films. He was a household name. He was a big superstar. He was actually a bigger name in terms of being a film actor than his other 2 co-stars at this point. It's true.
Which is crazy to think about now. Okay, so this movie opens up with the song Boys Will Be Boys. Or is it Bad Boys?
It's Bad Boys by Miami Sound Machine.
Bad Boys.
A lot of Gloria Estefan on this soundtrack. Let you know that it's 1987.
And we have Steve Guttenberg's character Michael painting his mural. I'm assuming these guys have like the penthouse, like the top floor of this building, because the elevator just goes up to the top and opens up to this landing, and he's putting a whole mural right there.
I think we can assume, because it's established that, okay, there are 3 lovable leads, this trio. It's Steve Guttenberg as Michael, the cartoonist, Ted Danson as Jack, the so-so actor, and Tom Selleck as the architect. Can we assume that Tom Selleck built this building, which is the only reason? I mean, come on. This is
exactly.
This is a penthouse apartment, and they let this guy just like paint all over the walls and the elevator door. No. This is probably a building that Selleck built himself.
And he probably was the developer, and so he has like stakes in this thing, financially, because
yeah.
these other guys, they're not making enough money to pay for this thing.
The building superintendent is probably just like, nobody goes on the 32nd floor, okay? Nobody talks about the 32nd
it's that
floor.
high.
How many stories do you think? I mean, it's nice. It's way up there.
I think it's like 10 or 15.
There's no scenes of them. Well, there's a couple scenes where they're using the stairs, but really, I mean, clearly it's top of the world, baby. I mean, this is a nice apartment. It's huge. It's roomy. There's a shot later in the film where you see Selleck actually running around the apartment. It's like, man, it's spectacular. I mean, this thing is, it's a total boys' paradise. Not to mention, really like a primo babe layer.
Total primo babe layer.
We know that from the opening montage.
Yep. It's kind of in fast forward with like all these women coming and going.
It's a revolving door of chicks. Yeah.
All the girls, each of the guys have girls, and oh yeah.
And it's 1987, around the time of the AIDS virus, but whatever, it's a Disney movie. We're not supposed to think about that. So just ignore your history, folks. Just enjoy the shenanigans. It's fine.
So our first scene is Peter's birthday party, which I'm assuming they hired some like party planners because they got like people dressed up, and
it's like Studio 54 up there.
I mean, these guys are players, and
oh man,
we find out that Peter, played by Tom Selleck, is dating Rebecca, and they're in an open relationship.
Yeah, interesting choice. Not a dishonest choice, but yeah, it's, again, it's a Disney movie. it is. It's a Disney film. Yeah, and it would have been if something more had come of the relationship.
But they've been together 5 years.
The character that Margaret Colin has she's a good actress, but it's a thankless role. She's kind of on again, off again in this movie. She kind of, enters and leaves. The most important thing about her is the scene where she basically says, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I know how to take care of a baby. Besides that, the character is pretty, not only disposable, but like, I gotta say, unlikable.
Yeah.
Pretty like, I didn't miss her when she wasn't on the screen.
Same.
And we should feel more about her because she's really one of the few windows we have into Tom Selleck's character.
So we find out that Jack, played by Ted Danson, is going out of the country to Turkey for an acting job. So he's leaving the next day, and a director friend asked Jack to hold a package for him while he's out of town. And it's a, quote, delicate matter.
All the warning signs are there. His hair is like 7 inches tall. I mean, he's basically like, Bubby, I'm your white knight. I mean, it's got some serious Ellis vibes.
Yeah, and he's like, 2 guys will come pick it up on Thursday. Basically, hold the package for me, and no big deal. Okay. So after the party, all the guys are
let's talk a little bit more, because this party is long.
Oh, go ahead.
I got to talk about, so we established that Steve Guttenberg's character, he's famous for this character named Johnny Cool, which by the way is basically just Chester Cheetah. Mm-hmm. Except Guttenberg is doing some cultural appropriation that has not aged very well. But I gotta say, like,
what culture is he appropriating?
Good question. A hip talking cheetah. I don't know, but I mean, not only does whatever year Chester Cheetah came, I didn't look it up.
Oh, you think he stole Chester Cheetah?
I think this movie stole Chester Cheetah from 3 Men. I mean, I think Chester Cheetah stole it from Gutenberg, really. Mm. But he's clearly the one who's kind of like, okay, whatever, we'll let you live here. You want to put up your mural? That's cute. That's fine. Clearly, he's the dead weight of the three, because at least, Danson's getting some commercial money. He's probably like, shilling for Alpo or Vienna sausage.
No, he said he's not doing commercials anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you see him doing like stage acting.
He might be one of those guys, because I've known actors like that where, they like, I got a Toyota commercial and I was getting the residuals. I was living off the residuals for like 3 months. He's probably one of those guys who, just kind of goes from gig to gig, never really establishes any momentum. It's really about, finding the work. Nothing wrong with that. But, for an apartment like this, obviously Selleck, his character probably wishes like, man, I wish I was living with like 2 other architects instead of like these mooching, leeching deadbeats.
Okay, so the party's over and the guys are all talking and they're like, oh man, Jack's leaving the next day but he's got a girl in his room, and they're like, he's like, how about I just like hang out with you guys? They're like, no, you can go like do your thing. And they say that the man is one giant gland. Like, this is the kind of dialogue we have here
Yeah.
to talk about how, like, horny he is.
And I'm wondering, like, my parents let me watch this movie. I think most kids, I've always thought of this as kind of a family film, and it really isn't. So it is kind of odd that, for a film that was positioned as, a comedy about guys raising a baby, it's very grown up. It doesn't, this isn't one of those, it's not like Home Alone. This is
Right.
clearly a movie for grown-ups.
Yeah. So the next day, Jack leaves for Turkey, and he leaves a voicemail talking about the package for his roommates. And then Peter comes home from a run and finds a baby on the landing in the mural room of their, penthouse apartment. And there's a note. It's like, "Dear Jack, here is our baby."
And I gotta say, Selleck plays this really well. He's really funny. This part of the film is really, really funny. It's it builds really nicely. And I gotta say, these three leads have, most of the film is Selleck and Guttenberg, but in any case, these three leads, they got great chemistry. For anything, like revisiting the film after not having seen it for a number of years, I'm really struck by, man, like these guys, they work well together. It is odd that they only did like these two films together, because they got great chemistry, and I really enjoyed the interplay between Guttenberg and Selleck here. Their desperation, their inability to deal with this, the fact that they're big men children rather, who are unable to deal with a baby, and for them it's this thing that they have
No experience
no
with.
knowledge, no experience, and of course this is before the internet, so like they've got no pointers, nothing. They're completely out of their element, and it's fun to watch it. The desperation of the comedy keeps building and building, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, he goes into the apartment and he's like, "Michael, like, look outside. Like, what's going on?" And Michael's like, "I don't know." They're both just like, and then they realize that this is the package that Jack is referring to, and they're just like, I'm sorry, what?" But what struck me is Sylvia, the mom, she leaves the baby in this really pretty bassinet with a note. Doesn't leave a diaper bag, doesn't leave any food or diapers or anything. Just like, "Here's a baby. See you later."
Thinking, not getting too ahead of it, but thinking about the film overall and the Nancy Travis performance that comes of it, I am trying to think of the character's endgame, like what exactly Sylvia was trying to accomplish here.
I think she had postpartum depression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, postpartum depression, AIDS, so many things this movie does not want to deal with. So many things.
Yeah, because, when we finally meet her at the end, it's obvious that she's overwhelmed and overworked and doesn't have any help. And so I think this was like just an act of desperation.
I appreciate the empathy you're bringing into this, because
Yeah.
I've always been kind of mystified by it, because not to get too ahead of it, but like when she shows up in the third act and it's like, oh, she's here to take the baby, I'm not rooting for her. And I should be, but I'm really not.
No, we're not rooting for her because we've seen the guys. We don't know her yet. We've just seen the guys like come through this whole thing. But yeah, I do think what we find out is that she just was overwhelmed and had a lot of postpartum depression. But the fact that this baby is like bathed and clean and like looks well taken care of. Okay, we haven't met Sylvia. All we see is the child.
Right.
I'm like, where's her stuff?
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So in the it's just basically just a lot of Selleck and Guttenberg. I don't know how much of this was improvised. I don't know how much this was written, but it's very winning. I find it really funny. They're really good together. There's a great scene where Danson is going to the supermarket and he's just beside him.
Danson.
I'm sorry. Selleck. Sorry.
Yeah.
Selleck. Sorry. Magnum. Thomas Magnum. He goes to the supermarket and he has to get baby formula. Meanwhile, Guttenberg is alone with the baby.
Which is just...
It's agonizing. I'm thinking, man, this kid is... this is a real horror show for this baby. He's left alone with the goot, and it's cultural appropriation time, bad improv, off-key singing, and shouting. Guttenberg establishes himself. He is, of this trio, he is the Dave Coulier. Mm-hmm. And by the way, this is a remake of a French film, an 1985 French film, very successful film called 3 Men and a Cradle. Well, Full House owes all kinds of royalties to Disney for this thing, because clearly Full House is, clearly they were like, okay, we're going to take 3 men and a baby. We're going to get rid of all the heroin. We're going to be like even more kids. We're going to triple the kids, and we're going to have, Lori Loughlin, and bingo, we got 3 men and a baby, the sitcom. And we don't even have to call it 3 men and a baby. We don't even have to pay those guys. We don't have to pay Leonard Nimoy. We got to talk about that later, that he directed this film. Anyway.
Oh, all right. Well, while Peter is being traumatized at the store by, this woman who works
Guttenberg
there.
is traumatizing this baby.
Yeah, he turns on the TV and sits down, and they start watching Dr. Ruth together with the baby.
That's a good gag, and it's a reminder that this adorable little old woman used to say words like penis and vagina on, like afternoon TV while you're away at school. Man,
Yeah.
I love Dr. Ruth. I love Dr. Ruth so much.
Okay, so at this point, before Peter gets back from the store, Mrs. Hathaway, she works in the building?
I don't know. I don't understand this character at all. And what she is, she's a plot device. Because we can't have Margaret Colin. It doesn't make sense for her to continue to just kind of casually walk in and out of the movie. So yeah, we have this other character, Mrs. Hathaway, who is likable, lovable, and the fact that she's good with babies is this quick indication of, it's this wonderful contrast that she has a really easy way with Mary, whereas the men are like, they can't get the baby to stop crying. They can't do anything right. Whereas Miss Hathaway's like, oh, holds her for a second. It's silence and it's bliss. And yeah, so it's kind of, but again, like she's a plot device. She's not dating any of the guys. She
brings up the real package.
Yeah, so again, she's a plot device. Like she should have had some stakes here. Like,
Yeah. Well, she brings up the real package, and Michael just like throws it. It lands in the couch, never to be seen for days.
Yeah.
And so then we realize, that we have trouble on our hands.
Yeah.
So Peter gets back from the store. They're trying to change Mary's diaper. They're using cotton balls and wipes.
Great stuff.
It's really funny. They get diapers the size of like adult Depends, trying to put it on this kid.
Give me the Come on, Michael, just give me a little cotton. I don't need a package. I just need some cotton. Oh, no, wait, the wipies. Give me the cotton wipies. Oh, this is disgusting. It's all over. It's sticky, and we're gonna need some kind of cleaning fluid to get it off.
How about aftershave?
Oh, come on, Michael. Just get me one of the diapers. All right. No, these tape things go in the front or the back.
How am I supposed to know?
There.
Whoa! These diapers are way too big. What size did you get?
They're ultra absorbent. The more absorbent, the better, if you ask me. Will you hold it for a minute? The kid's going crazy. I
don't want to.
Come on, Michael.
Hey, don't pull that so hard. It's gonna rip.
I'm not gonna rip it.
Yes, you are.
All right, well, okay. Get me another diaper. I'll use the tape. I'll use the tape from the diaper. I'll tape it up. I'm an architect, for Christ's sakes. I build 50-story skyscrapers. I assemble cities of the future. I can certainly put together a goddamn diaper. Take it easy, kid. All right? There, see? It's working. Piece of cake. There. Yeah.
Nice job, Pete.
The little insect was just waiting for that diaper to fall off.
I think we're in trouble.
There's baths, there's poop, there's more baths. I mean, these guys, like, literally know nothing.
And look, had this movie stuck the course, these scenes, I know the movie would have been one note. I know it would have been like, it's just kind of a sitcom. This stuff works. I love this stuff. These are all the trailer scenes that are, like I didn't see in the theater, but I certainly saw the trailer a lot. So I knew a lot of the punchlines in this movie, and they were always funny. They're still funny. I love it when he asks Guttenberg to change the diaper for $1,000 because he doesn't want to do it. Like,
I'll give you $1,000.
All this stuff is great. They're great. It's funny. Like, it's just, it's really gentle humor. And then this movie becomes Hill Street Blues. Suddenly it becomes about a bag of heroin. And I'll tell you, like, it always felt weird to me as a kid. Looking at it now, it's like, God, this movie. It just.
Well, yeah, these like two guys show up and they're like, we're here for our package. And the guys just like hand them the baby in this bassinet and like, here you go. And they're like,
But by the way, two of cinema's lamest drug dealers. I mean, these guys are like the wet bandits of drug dealers. This, yeah. This isn't like James Woods playing a drug dealer. These are like, I mean, these guys are so lame. This isn't like Miami Vice or anything. No, like these guys are like really kind of corny. They're very Mutt and Jeff, but whatever. They're threatening, they're menacing, and they think they're there for. Well, they are there to pick up this package, and I keep saying Danson. Sorry, Selleck and Guttenberg give them the baby, thinking like, okay, like you're here to pick up the baby.
Yeah, and then they're like, hold on, we're gonna give you the powdered milk. They're like, oh yeah. Wink, wink, the powdered milk.
It's a little uncomfortable because it's like, are they really not getting this? I mean, we have an architect. I mean, obviously, Mr. Johnny Cool's not going to get it, but, it is a little weird that an architect doesn't understand that these are drug dealers.
Well, yeah. I mean,
we see Gutenberg's room, and it's like, this is a child's room. This is, like, I suspect, like, Selleck and Danson were like, look, he's got nowhere else to go. We'll let him live with us. Like this guy, he's never getting married. He is hopeless. He does doodles. He can live with us. I get it. But yeah, the fact that Selleck's like, okay, so remember to rock her and give her some milk and and the drug dealer's like, yeah, sure. Well, okay. It's this weird thing of like, you want us to take the baby? It's like, ooh, that is kind of dark, actually.
It is dark. Yeah.
Like the movie doesn't really know what to do with it. And it takes it to the extreme of they take the baby downstairs.
Wait, but before that, like, they sit down on the couch and Peter's like, I just don't feel right about this. Like, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then he's sitting on the couch and he finds the real package. And then he's like, oh my gosh, So they run after the guys. The guys are going to like put the baby in the trunk in the bassinet. I mean, it's a total farce, but it's also really scary.
And I'm reminded just like, oh yeah, this is the 80s. Like they can't text the drug dealers. They can't like send an Instagram message, or like, no, it's like they're yelling out the window, don't go! Like they have to physically run after, and that's where Selleck trips in the hallway, and out comes the heroin.
He's like, oh my gosh, it's drugs, but he does get the baby back, and what's funny is he's holding the bassinet, and the drug dealer like grabs the powdered milk because he thinks it's the drugs.
Yeah.
And then there's like a cop on
horseback.
Horseback, yeah.
Follows Selleck back up to the apartment where he explains, he explains to him, this is my ID, this is everything's normal, and the cop buys it. But
then the narcotics cop comes up.
Immediately, Philip Bosco. I love this actor so much. Late actor. Copenhagen was this amazing Broadway show that he starred in. He's in really my favorite Bill Murray movie called Quick Change. He plays a bus driver. I love this actor so much. He's a great actor. He's no longer with us. But
wasn't he in My Best Friend's Wedding?
Was he?
Yeah, doesn't he play the dad of the girl?
Cameron Diaz?
Yeah.
Maybe he does. Forgive me, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, I think
you would know that movie better than I do. You know me, I'm Mr. Anti-romantic comedy. Yeah, so you would know that.
Yeah, I think he does.
Okay, yeah, he's wonderful. I love this actor so much. A great New York actor. But yeah, he's the cop, and he's a narcotics cop. And Bosco plays this really well, where he's scoping out the apartment. He's clearly humoring Tom Selleck. Forgive me, I'm just going to say the actors' names. He's humoring Selleck, and Selleck's giving him water, and he's got that great throwaway line where Selleck is fixing him a glass of water away from him, out of the cop's earsight. And he's like, this way, you could wet your whistle while you read me my Miranda rights. It's a great line. So there's that bit, and they manage to talk the cop out of the apartment again. So they get rid of two cops, but they're very aware.
Before that, Michael is hiding the cocaine in Mary's diaper.
So dumb.
Like, what are you doing? And the cop, he wants to, he's like, I love babies. That's what everybody says when they see Mary. Oh, I love babies. Let me hold her. And he's like, wow, I think she needs to be changed. She's feeling really heavy.
Like, this movie becomes Midnight Express. Like, what is this subplot? What is going on? And why are they having the baby involved? Yeah, I'm not, and I know, look.
And Jack calls
yes.
while he's trying to get the water for the cop. And so the cop hears that Jack is in Turkey, and Jack makes a joke about smuggling drugs. So,
And that's funny. But I mean, I gotta say, like, even as I'm watching, not to get too ahead of it, but why not? Whatever. As I'm watching it with you tonight, as we watched it before we recorded this, I keep thinking, yes, they could have cut all this stuff out. They could have cut all this out because, even when the subplot, and not to like, jump ahead of it, but like even when this part of the movie ends, because it's not the climax.
No.
It's really just the end of the second act. They immediately jump back to the fun stuff, and it's almost like the bad stuff never happened. I swear to you, they could. And look, Disney already did this, all right? Disney had a movie. It starred Julia Roberts and Richard Gere, and it was originally titled $3,000. That was the original title, $3,000. And originally had all these subplots about Miss Vivian having a drug addiction. She had a pimp who slapped her around. They cut all that crap out of the movie. They retitled it Pretty Woman. And Pretty Woman became, and it actually outgrossed Three Men and a Baby. It was like one of the top grossing grown-up live action Disney films ever. It's like, why do they fixed that movie? Why couldn't they have done it here? I know this is 3 years earlier, but I mean, did the test audience really like the heroin crap? Because
I don't know.
because I mean, when I think of this movie, I think of the Peter Cetera song.
Like
I think of them,
wacky drug dealers.
and I think
babe.
I think of them like taking the baby in the shower, taking the baby in the pool. Like all this stuff that's like really sweet and funny and touching and goofy. Like all this stuff with the heroin subplot. I'm like, I hate this part of the film so much.
Yeah, because, it's Peter and Michael trying to like juggle Mary while they're both working. And then at one point they have Mrs. Hathaway babysit. And when they come home, their apartment is trash. She's tied up. Mary is in like another room and there's like this ominous note like, next time we're taking the baby.
But to my point, listeners, right after this scene is the scene where Selleck has the baby in his arms and he's reading the paper to the baby and he's reading this, the bloody newspaper report about the boxing match. It's funny. It's sweet. It's like, this is the movie I want to watch. I don't give a crap about the heroin. All of that is awful. And it's kind of in bad taste to have this French Connection crud going on with the story of three guys trying to raise a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I know it was in the original '85 French film, but like, look, Disney, if you're gonna buy the rights to this film, how about take the stuff that works, or at least maybe acknowledge that maybe it wouldn't work, in this contemporary context, because there's a charm this movie has that comes easily when it's about three men learning how to be better men by embracing a feminine side that they are completely clueless about. It's Tootsie. It's Tootsie. It's about three men learning to be better men by becoming women, essentially.
Yeah, because it's really funny when Peter and Michael are by themselves and they're trying to take care of Mary and Peter's like, well, where's the baby powder? He's like, it's in the hallway. He's like, well, why would you leave it in the hall when we're bathing the baby in here? And they sound just like an old married couple.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. And the movie, the movie's making this. It's like Tootsie. It's smart enough to make these points without completely spelling it out. It's very winning. But when we're dealing with like the guys, I mean, for one thing, the second act of this movie not only does the movie go all the way through with this stupid drug subplot.
Okay, but let's get.
I'm sorry. Okay, all right. So
okay, because Jack is coming home now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, Jack gets home early.
Okay.
And it's funny because Peter, he's sneaking in the house and Peter takes a basketball and just like knocks him out and he's like, what are you guys doing? And then the baby starts crying and he's like, what's going on?
Well, it's funny because they attack him and initially it's the shenanigans like, oh, the lights were out, we didn't know it was you, but then we clearly it's like, no, we know it was you. We're trying to hurt you.
We are ticked at you.
Yeah.
And so they're basically like, here's your baby, have fun.
Yeah.
And so at one point they're playing pool and Jack's just in the other room like, oh my gosh, not on my silk sheets.
It's great. I love this bit.
And they're like, should we help him? Like, let's give it like 30 more minutes. But the next day, Jack calls his mom and she comes over and he's like, Mom, can you help me? Can you take this baby for, a little bit till she's like 18? And
the mom is taking the baby to the other room and there's this ghost that appears in the side of the room. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about it. Come on, let's do it. So, two remarkable things about this scene. So, the mom is played by Celeste Holm. She lived to be 95 years old. This movie came out in 87. She lived to be 95. She died in 2012. Wow. She won the Oscar in 1947 for Gentleman's Agreement. Veteran actress, so much work. I'm so impressed by her history. I'm ashamed that I don't know more about her, and I will remedy that. I'm reading about her tonight. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why am I not up on her? And then, of course, the scene where she takes the baby and walks across the room. Of course, this is the reason why most video cassettes, including the one that my brother and I owned, why they weren't all the way rewound, because people heard that there was a ghost in this movie. And you can clearly see the ghost. Now, what happened was, I think it was on Phil Donahue. I think even Oprah reported on it. I know Geraldo Rivera did. I mean, it was a huge story. The National Enquirer wrote about it, and they all had the same freeze frame, and you could see clearly a figure standing in the background in the billowy curtains. The news got around that this movie was shot in an apartment where a little boy died. Oh my gosh! And you could see the boy. It even looks like the boy. Well, this news story circulated for a while, and the video cassette rentals of this thing went through the roof.
Me and my friend, we would try and find this scene and freeze frame it.
And I remember I don't know if it was Good Morning America or what it was. I remember getting chills. Look, there's the freeze frame.
I'm oh my gosh,
you can see it. That's really something. Wow, it's there's a ghost in the frame of this movie. And then, a little bit of time goes by, and, a little bit of research happens. This movie was shot in a sound stage. Most of the interiors were shot on a sound stage that was nowhere near, I guess, in California. And then if you have a really good VCR, and thankfully I did, and you were able to see.
You had a really good VCR as opposed to a not so good VCR.
The VCR that my father had, you were able to look frame by frame. You were able to. It was this round knob. You were able to toggle frame by frame. That's how we were able to see the dirty imagery in Roger Rabbit. By the way, same company. It's the following year. But yeah, so no, we were able to see the dirty stuff in Roger Rabbit, which they later cut out. I'm so glad we got to see it. The 80s. Weren't they great, Marty? And then in 87, we were able to see the ghost. But of course, not long after all this, seriously, listeners, if you don't remember this, this was a big deal in the media, that the 3-man and a baby ghost. And then, not only do we learn that the film was not actually shot in the apartment where the kid died, but also that it was clearly a Ted Danson cutout. He's wearing a suit and tie. Apparently, he did a Cole Porter musical or whatever it was. But it's a prop, and you see it later on in the film too. What's creepy is that whoever the prop master was should never work again, because you see the prop next to the window when the mom is holding the baby. That's the famous freeze frame. But then later on, when it's a reverse shot and she's going to another part of the room, they forgot to put the prop back. So of course people think it's a ghost, because
they're like, oh, it was there and now it's gone.
No, it's not there. Yeah, it's the poor prop person going well, Mr. Nimoy didn't want it in the scene, so I got rid of it. Yeah, and then this legend built. So yeah, no. Sorry to hinder on that, but this was a big deal.
It was,
and it was fascinating because it was the 3-man and a baby ghost. Yeah. So anyway,
okay.
we'll continue with the plot. Sorry.
Okay. So basically, Jack asks his mom to help him, and she's like, "I am not going to help you. You're going to have to grow up sometime." And Rebecca tells Peter something similar earlier in the film, where she's like, what, just because I'm a woman you think I know about babies? I'm not gonna help you with this baby.
And that's good. And by the way, that's the whole reason of having the character here, and and that should have been the exit of the character, because clearly she's having
Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, we're talking about the grandma, but the Rebecca
both
too.
of those characters, their main job is to say okay, the baby was dropped here in your lap. This is your responsibility.
And deal with it. You're a grown man, and just because you have a connection to the baby that is not traditional doesn't mean that you're you're in the clear, that you can't raise this child, take care of this child, nurture this child. No, the film is, I don't know, I wouldn't call this a feminist movie at all. Nevertheless, I think the attitude that the film has in terms of the responsibility.
the women certainly are.
Yeah, no, and I dig that about the film. I do. I think that part of the movie works. I wish there was a lot more of that. So then, it's established that our 3 lunk-headed heroes, in addition to wanting to raise Mary, the good part, the bad part is they don't go to the cops, even though Miss Hathaway was tied up, their apartment was trashed to crap, and they decided not to go to the cops.
Yeah, they decided to deal with it on their own.
It's insane, listeners. This is crazy, because at this point, their house has been broken into. I mean, there's probably fingerprints everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And there's a witness. The babysitter like saw everything. So like it's crazy not only that they want to deal with it themselves, but I'm like, what about Miss Hathaway?
Yeah.
Like they're like, hey, don't worry, we're gonna sell this heroin. We'll cut you in on it, okay? Just don't say anything, Miss Hathaway. Like, what happens to this character? She got tied up. She's probably traumatized by this stuff.
Right.
It's weird that they're just like, you know what, movie, just forget about her. You know, she's
I don't think we.
anyway.
I don't think we see her after that.
No, like I don't even know the name of the actress who plays the character. Like it's that like nondescript. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these idiots decide they're gonna be like Popeye Doyle in The French Connection and deal with the drug dealers themselves.
So they set up this ridiculous, drop.
And they do it on a payphone because it's the 80s.
Right.
All three of them on the payphone, and they bring the baby.
But they're doing it in like some abandoned building, and
this is where you bring Miss Hathaway back in. Like there's a scene where they go, "Hey, sorry, we got to deal with this. Sorry, I know you got tied up last time. It'll be okay this time." Like,
yeah, can you watch Mary
exactly
while we catch these drug dealers?
Or you bring Celeste home back as Jack's mom. Like, Mom, like I really need you to watch the baby this time. We got to deal with these drug dealers. Please take your granddaughter. Yeah, but they so dumb. They bring the baby with them, and then you get the sight of Ted Danson in drag, and I guess it's stunning how much he resembles Fabio in drag.
Mm-hmm. He is also in drag in the sequel to this movie. He likes to be in drag.
Well, the implication is that, especially by the second film, he's like a Daniel Day-Lewis kind of actor who could just like, and you really don't see it in this first one. But yeah, in the second film, it's really like he's like this really amazing actor, and it's a movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So we have Peter, he's the one who's supposed to talk to the drug dealers. And then we have Michael with his huge video camera inside some, vent thing in this abandoned building. And he's filming the whole interaction so that, they can give it to the cops. But like an idiot, he's inside there and he can't keep still. And he like falls over. So then we have to deal with a chase, and
I'm still trying to figure out why the Goot tripped over. He tips over his hiding place. I'm wondering, like, did he hit the eject button on the video cassette player, and then like the VHS like smacked into his face? Like, why? It doesn't
make any sense.
Any sense
he
at all,
just
other
loses
than to
his
like,
balance.
Okay, now it's a chase.
Yeah,
it's so bad. Yeah, and he's videotaping it with his camcorder. I'm sure that thing must have made like a roaring sound as he hit the record button. But yeah, it's really bad. It's really clunky, and the fact that the drug dealers don't understand they're being filmed is really odd, especially considering the location.
Right.
I do love the bit where they sprint after Selleck. Selleck hits a little lever, and suddenly he home alones them. Where these giant yellow whatever would you say pylons, whatever they're called. They just knock them down. It's great. I like that. But then there's an elevator chase, which is not really the most exciting chase
they're
in
both
a movie.
in different elevators, and the elevator goes super slow, and then Ted Danson shuts off the power to the wrong
the day.
one.
One elevator goes, the other doesn't. Yeah, I mean, this is. I mean, look. I prefer this over a long car chase, but this is.
Well, and then the cops are called, and they show up, and it's the narcotic cop.
Philip Bosco shows up and says, "Hey, good job, you guys."
Yeah,
and
he's like the most cheerful.
I'm like, what happened to this edgy cop who is, clearly humoring these guys because he knows that they're prime suspects, that they're probably lying, they probably got drugs and a baby in this apartment. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, great. Oh, cool. Thanks. Videotape. Oh, thanks, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, you videotaped.
Oh, you got him up the elevator.
Perfect.
Sweet. Thanks. Oh, thanks so much,
for
you guys.
doing our job.
Yeah. Hey, welcome to New York. We're a happy town here. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they just let them go.
And the movie immediately cuts to Peter Cetera and the montage of the guys being, baby magnets, and suddenly we're back into the movie we like.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, before we get away from it, and by the way, thank you for sticking to the plot, because clearly I just want to jump over all this drug crap. But here's the thing, though, like, I like this movie a lot. I do. But, like, the drug stuff, it ruins a part of it so much that once we're finally into the fun stuff, I kept waiting for the drug dealers to show
come
up.
back,
I kept
like,
waiting
take
for
revenge.
I kept waiting for Philip Bosco to come by for a statement. I kept waiting for the movie to remind me of the stuff I don't like. And it's interesting that, when the second act ends, there's a lot of movie left. Not a ton, but 20? Yeah. 25 minutes? Like, there's enough of it. It's like, wow, like, we're really past the part of the movie that blows into the stuff that's really charming and really funny and really sweet.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I like the Peter Cetera. I've always liked that moment. I mean, that's probably my favorite part of the movie, where they're in the park and
They take her
it's
swimming.
charming, yeah, because like
It's
these are
really long.
yeah,
Montage.
it's the entire Peter Cetera song. But this is the year after Glory of Love from Karate Kid Part 2. So like we gotta milk this track. It's gonna be huge.
And then Rebecca is still around.
I don't get that at all.
Still hanging around.
No, I mean, didn't they sense like this character isn't working? She's unappealing. Selleck seems only even somewhat interested in her. Yeah, it's odd. It's odd.
At one point before the drug stuff, when he asks her for help, like she comes over with another guy that she's going on a date with.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like Dana Barrett in Ghostbusters when she was dating a musician, and Peter Venkman was making fun of her. It's that kind of dynamic, but in this case, like she's clearly ditching Tom Selleck for this Hungarian cello player.
Yeah,
and that should have been her exit from the movie. It really should have, because
she comes back.
Yeah.
And the three leads are singing to Mary like "Good night, sweetheart."
Yeah,
it's a cute.
It's a good scene. It works.
And it's just like all these reaction shots of Rebecca in bed like laughing because she can hear them singing. I'm like, maybe that was the only reason they kept her around.
Now, do you remember, Margaret Colin's most famous role?
Oh, in Independence Day.
Yeah.
She was who?
Isn't she the president's wife? Isn't she Bill Pullman's?
I don't know. You should have looked before you got rid of that.
Well, I figured you know that.
I don't know.
Oh, I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
Hold on. Oh, no, that was Mary McDonald. Who was she in that then? Well, she was she's the White House communications director. All right, she's in Independence Day. She's a good actress. She's not utilized really well here, but most of the women aren't, other than Jack's mom, and that one scene with Colin. Like it's really a dude fest.
It is.
Because when Nancy Travis shows up, as I've said, I think the film would have been a little smarter, or I don't know, maybe just a little more balanced.
Well, Sylvia shows up right now, so we can talk about her.
Okay, so it's Nancy Travis, and she's goo goo gagging all over her baby.
Yeah, she's all back like, I'm back. I'm here to see Mary, and you're like,
and there's all these reactions.
Leave her.
And she, clearly she's been crying and upset, but the Nancy Travis is gorgeous and always engaging. I've always liked Nancy Travis, and just almost everything she's done. There's a couple, but for the most part, she's consistently good. But here she's made up. She looks like she's been on drugs. It looks like, was she buying the heroin from these guys on the side?
She doesn't look like
she does. She looks like she's been strung out. So like when she's cuckooing all over the baby, and there's all these reaction shots to Selleck, is like, yeah, man, I feel it. I feel that, man. Like, ugh.
You think
how
she looks
dare
like
she?
She's on drugs?
She looks like she's like woken up from a bender. Yes. She doesn't look healthy. I'm not, and look, Nancy Travis is lovely, but I'm saying the way she's made up, clearly, the implication is that I get it.
Stressed out.
She's been crying, yes, but she's been crying while she's been shooting heroin into her toe. That's what she looks like.
Oh my gosh, no. Okay, she's left her baby. What has it been? 2 weeks?
It's like, did you pick up my package that was left for me and Jack?
How long has the baby even been there? What, 2 weeks?
Oh gosh, I mean, the movie doesn't tell us. I mean, has it been weeks or has it been months? Because after the drug shenanigans end, was the park scene all in one day where they go to the park and they go to the pool?
Okay, maybe a month.
How about a month or two? Yeah, maybe a season even. I mean, like they're a family unit when she shows up.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say it's like, you think
it's been like 3 months?
The drug crap was July, and this is like October.
Okay, all right, then that makes sense. But all right, think about it. She probably has had postpartum depression, like I mentioned.
Yeah, which I appreciate your
stressed
saying
out.
That.
She's a working actor because that's how she met Jack. So she's going out on auditions. That's stressful. So she has a stressful job and.
So speed. I'm sorry about heroin. Yeah, so speed. So maybe she's a speed addict.
Okay.
Or the other very popular powder stuff that was very big in the 80s.
Well, okay, so she wants to take Mary and move back to London because, her family is like, yes, we'll help you. Just come home, move in with us. And the guys are all just like, well, I guess we have to let her go because, especially Peter and Michael, that Mary's not their kid. So they're kind of waiting for Jack to kind of realize that he loves her, that he's going to miss her. And I really liked that scene, where Jack is talking about, all right, now we can get back to our regular lives. Like, this is a good thing. And they're like, yeah, it's great. And he's like, oh, I just have this like ache in my chest. And they're like, maybe you're just not sleeping enough. And they're giving him all these reasons for why he could be feeling bad. And he's like, no, that's not it. They're like, well, what is it? What is it, Jack? He's like, I miss Mary. And they're so happy that he finally said it.
I mean, right before, I gotta say, like, a scene that has always touched me, and I really felt it tonight, is right before this moment, there's a montage of, the real song, Goodnight Sweetheart, is playing. And it's all the guys reacting to the weight of her absence.
Yes.
And Tom Selleck looks at the little pink hard hat that he made for his daughter.
It's so
I
cute.
dig that. That's a good moment.
Yeah.
I think, oh, okay, this is, man, this part of the movie is really, really working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I loved seeing little baby Mary in her pink hard hat going. Well, it's cute because she goes to work with all of them at different times. Like, they just kind of like, okay, you're going to go do buildings today. And then with Jack, he just wears her while he's like acting on stage. And then when he's with Michael, she just hangs out while he draws.
What an insufferable actor he is, though, that he has like a baby strapped to his back. What kind of director would, I mean, I'm serious. Like, that's a little moment. Like, we're not seeing as the director goes, you know what, we're going to go with somebody else.
Yeah.
Are you going to do this during the show?
This baby's kind of ruining the scene.
You're playing King Lear. King Lear didn't have a baby strapped to his back. I know this is like avant-garde, but no, man. Go back to those Alpo commercials you were doing, Jack, because like this is not for you.
All right, so this is so Jack finally admits he misses Mary, and they're like, well, he's like, there's nothing we can do. And he's like, well, when does her flight leave? So typical race to the airport scene.
Yeah, very, very typical.
Yeah,
running. Should make a montage of these
just
scenes.
Running through the airport, trying to get through a metal detector.
Was it How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days where McConaughey is like running to the airport on foot and like Ain't No Mountain High Enough is playing? Am I remembering that correctly?
No, that's not from that movie.
Is that from Runaway Bride?
There's no airport scene in that movie.
But he's running through the street, right? And he finds her on the bridge, and like the car's on the bridge.
Oh, he's on a motorcycle.
Oh my gosh, these movies with these terrible scenes.
Yeah. Anyway, so they see that the plane leaves. They go back home. They're all sad. They go up the elevator, and there's Sylvia and Mary sitting in the mural room, and she's crying.
And it is, I don't know, I've always found it surprising because it's like, oh, she went right back there. I mean, it's funny to think like the movie spends so much time creating this fake suspense, and really, if the guys had just like talked about it a little more,
if they had just stayed home,
they probably just missed her. Yeah.
No. So she's crying and just talking about how she wants to stay in New York, she wants to work, but she's just working to pay babysitters and she's not sleeping. And the guys are like, I know, because once you put her down and then she's waking up, and they're all like kind of commiserating together about how hard it is to raise a baby. And so they're like, we'll help you, but then it's like Peter just like invites both of them to live there, and without even talking to the guys, and they're like, great idea. It's
the quickest resolution to a huge problem you've ever seen in your life.
And they're like, she's like, well, is there room here? And he's like, I'll build you a room. And they're like, yeah, he builds rooms.
It's like they took in a homeless person, like, look, we will get you treatment, we will get you cleaned up, we'll get you to Harvard, we'll raise your children, we'll raise your grandchildren. No, it's that crazy and that quick. Because I get it, the movie is, they got to wrap things up, but I don't know. It feels like there's a scene missing here, and they're like, let's just end the film, because at this point, like, look, we know what the audience wants, and the characters may or may not want this, but like, let's have them jump to that conclusion. I think
the characters want it.
They do, and they don't. I mean,
you don't think the guys want it?
Don't you think they're gonna have second thoughts about it at week 2? It's like, the apartment does smell like fecal matter now, and we used to have like a crazy.
Okay. But they realized
this used to be like college here.
Empty and meaningless their lives were before Mary.
Yeah, but then when Mary is gone, because Mom takes Mary to Central Park, the guys are like, "Oh man, do you remember what it used to? Remember how like this place used to be like the 70s all the time?"
Remember our raging parties and the just carousel of women that came through
They're
there?
watching, like, the three of them watching National Lampoon's, like, Animal House. Like, oh, remember when this used to be like this apartment? We just do this right here. Remember that?
No, I think they've evolved.
Well, it's funny because one of the lines I think Gutenberg throws out, he's talking about Peter's like, he'll build you a room. And I'm thinking, well, in this apartment, no, like he'll probably just like they'll just get rid of the jukebox and the pinball machine or in the condom drawer and okay, like this is your station. You'll have this, spot. The movie would have been wiser, I think, to set up what the sequel does immediately, which is establish that Ted Danson's character is self-centered, lovable in that way, but kind of a loser and certainly a disaster as a father. And that she immediately has a chemistry with Selleck. The sequel is very quickly to establish that is what happened. I know that's forward thinking. That the sequel came 3 years later, but I think it would have helped because it is this thing of like it's a contrivance that it gets worked out this easily, this quickly. But again, the movie needs to end at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, we kind of get to that the four of them with Mary like walking out the door and they end up in the mural room and Michael has added to the mural and now Sylvia's there and they have the baby and it is the most hideous depiction of a little child I've ever seen.
It looks exactly like Baby Herman from
Yes.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which
It
came
did.
out the following year. So I'm wondering, like, if you think they're like, we already got the design for Baby Herman, just put it on the wall. So I gotta say, like, the sequel came 3 years later. It's Three Men and a Little Lady.
Which I love. I love the sequel.
The sequel is cornier, it's simpler, and it's better.
Yeah.
It is, because it doesn't have any heroin in it. Because it doesn't need heroin.
No drug dealers.
It doesn't have any drug subplots. No, it's not this driving around trying to evade drug dealers. Crazy.
Yeah, it's Sylvia trying to figure out which dude she wants to be with.
I like this movie so much. There's so many scenes in it I like. Again, like it's the if they cast the wrong three guys, this movie would not matter. But I think it's still funny. It's still endearing because of how good our three leads are. I want to say very quickly, it was directed by Leonard Nimoy, who's no longer with us. One of the most iconic actors in science fiction because he played Spock in so many iterations of Star Trek. I met Leonard Nimoy about 15 years or so ago. And it was this long day where he was signing all this stuff, and I was in the line of things to get signed. My dear friend Dave said, can you get him to sign this? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to have a moment to see Mr. Nimoy. So I'm in, it's like this long line, and I'm hearing all the stuff people are saying to him, like, so in season 2, episode 11, you said this, but I wonder about the inflection. It was a lot of that. And it's just like, oh, and he was fantastic with the fans. He was patient. He was cool. But even I'm just dying inside whenever I hear someone else talk. But I've been there too. I get to him, and I have this DVD set that Dave gave me to ask, like, can you have Mr. Nimoy sign it? So I have my moment with Mr. Nimoy. I'm like, hey, I just want to tell you, thank you so much for directing 3 Men and a Baby. And Nimoy stopped and he looked up at me and he had this big wide-eyed look in his face. He says, thank you. And that was it. But it was cool. It was cool.
And that was the story.
I got a real reaction out of it. It was super, super cool.
He didn't roll his eyes at you.
No, he didn't. I think he was genuinely shocked. Like, someone remembered that I did that film. And by the way, it was the top grossing film of 1987. He didn't do a lot more after that. And it's and I've seen the other films he's directed. That was his best film. But yeah, it's very well made. It's not an especially stylish film, but he did a good job. I mean, if anything, it's a shock to realize like he did that film. But he's an actor, and like a lot of great actors, they become good directors because they're good with other actors. So this is an actor's film. This could easily be a stage play.
We've been saying that a lot lately.
But I would see this.
You would see this as a stage play?
Yeah, I think the way to do it is you got to have a dummy. You have to have a baby dummy, and you got to have the off stage cooing and crying. Or you make it really weird. You do it real avant-garde where they're miming the baby's invisible.
No.
That's like
I'm gonna say no to this
that's
idea.
like the experimental theater version.
No.
Baby.
Okay, how many stars do you give this movie?
2.5. 2.5.
Really?
It used to be 3 for me. For me, it was always 3. But watching it tonight, I'm like, I still hate the drug stuff so much. If they can like take Pretty Woman and basically make it this Disney ode to prostitution. Why couldn't they have cut all they cut all the pimp stuff out of Pretty Woman? Why couldn't they have cut all the heroin crap out of this movie?
That's what you said. But so besides taking all the heroin stuff out, is there anything else you would change?
No, because I think the good stuff works. I mean, I think you can cleanly edit all the crime subplot out of the film, and you have the movie you remember. Because most people remember, I've said this before about Dirty Dancing. People forget about the abortion subplot, which is a big part of that film.
Okay, do you think it would have worked with the whole package thing, and then when the guys come to the apartment, they just give them the real package and just be done with it?
No, I think you can cut all of that out. I think Jack goes on a trip because he's in a movie. You cut out the subplot about his friend who's providing him with the package. You cut out the two Mutt and Jeff, wet bandit, blood red van, idiot drug dealer guys. You cut out, I love Philip Bosco, but I think you could get rid of his stuff, his scenes. You get rid of all of that because it does feel tonally off when you go, you've got these scenes of the crime stuff, and then it's good night, sweetheart. It's like I feel like there's a good movie here, and it's surrounded by a mediocre one. Because we're here for the poster. The three guys are holding a baby, and the baby is peeing all over Tom Selleck. That's the movie, and it's funny, and it works like that. Can you imagine Mrs. Doubtfire with a drug subplot? Oh dear, it's heroin. Ooh, what will the children think? I must hide it in the cookie jar. I hope you don't want any cookies. Seriously, because look, a movie that's comparable to this, it came out 2 years later. It was one of the biggest hits of all time. Look Who's Talking. You know what that movie didn't have? A heroin subplot.
That's true.
And that movie is charming and cute, and it's like for all the things about it that are insufferably corny and dated. Like that film is so charming.
Do you think this one should be remade?
No. And frankly, I mean, how many seasons of Full House? I think they've had a chance to retool this formula.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to give it 3 stars.
Okay. I'm afraid that Disney Plus is going to do a third film. Because I hear about a third film all the time. We just got to... I haven't seen Disenchanted yet, so I don't know how Enchanted 2 is, but I saw Hocus Pocus 2. I don't like bland, flavorless, disposable sequels that they can make just because they can.
So Tom Selleck back with Nancy Travis?
They've been talking. I mean, they've been talking for years.
Maybe the baby.
Now they said she's going to be in college.
Oh, she's going to college.
She's going to get married. It's going to be like Father of the Bride, and they don't approve of the person they want. Who's going to get? That whole thing.
Probably a Father of the Bride situation.
Yeah. No, apparently all 3.
And which father?
Sure, and all 3 actors.
Gonna Walker, yeah.
Yeah, all 3 actors want to do it. I imagine, I think Nancy Travis is available. Yeah, they've said over the years they want to do it.
I'd be down for that. If they have a good enough story. If it's a good enough story.
Yeah, if it's a good enough story, I don't know. I think the odds are kind of against it. The last movie came out in 1990. It's been a while. Because at this point, I mean, it's like it's 3 men and a millennial. It's been a while.
3 men and a TikTok star.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess they could bring the heroin back. They can make it really dark. This one, they're like, there's cops like staking the daughter out. They're like, we think she might be a heroin dealer.
They're like, oh my gosh, we've come full
irony.
circle.
And Nancy Travis is like, well, I did heroin when I was an actress.
Oh my gosh, she did not. She did not do heroin.
No,
Okay.
Sylvia is totally innocent. She did do heroin. She did speed. We already talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So 2.5 stars for me, 3 stars for you. We like this film.
We do.
I don't love it. I used to love it. I like the film a lot. But this was a movie that I do remember owning the video cassette to.
Yeah.
And this is back when video cassettes were $29.95. I don't know how much people pay for Disney Plus, but
that is so crazy.
yeah, $29.95 for a little rectangular box, and we never rewound it because we're always like, the ghost. We got to see the 3 men and a baby ghost.
All right. Any final thoughts? I think we covered it all.
I think we said more about this movie than most people would ever care to say. But no, I enjoyed watching it with you. I'm glad we covered it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That was our discussion of Three Men and a Baby.
Good night, everyone.